Palestinian migrants have caused an absolute crime wave when they have come to Europe. Not a huge surprise when I say that, but here is what is a big surprise. The country of Denmark in Europe has started publishing data on what Palestinian refugees have done. In some cases, up to 70% of them have been convicted of criminal offences, and almost half have now gone to prison, which is a remarkable thought. But also, Denmark has created something else I'm going to tell you about in this video, because it's two things for the price of one. Number one, I'm going to tell you about those statistics on migrant crime. Once again, they won't come as a huge surprise. You'll just be surprised that Denmark's actually bothered to publish them. UK would never do that. But also, when you hear the concept in Denmark of non-Western zones, these areas of the country that have been taken over by foreign nationals and what they're going to do to mitigate it, you will say to yourself that Denmark has got this absolutely right. Hello everyone, this is Andre Walker. Thanks so much for watching this video. Please do support the Patriot Club. Last month, we stopped the police from killing somebody who had attempted to practice their right to free speech in order to criticise Islam. We were able to step in, you and me were able to step in and help. That's where your money's going to. Please donate below. Okay, so I told you I'd do two things in the video. Let's go for the first of those two things. And this is the statistics, which I'm going to read to you about the Palestinians that have come to Denmark. And so I think this is going to be really, really interesting just to go through. So let's go through these. And by the way, I want to thank our friends at Visgrad 24 for getting these. Okay, a special law in 1992 granted 321 Palestinian migrants the right to come to Denmark. Okay, so the statistics I'm about to give you are from 1992 to 2012. Okay, of those who came in that wave from the Palestinian area, 204 of the 321 have now been convicted of a serious crime, or rather had been by 2019. 71 of them had been sentenced to time in prison, and a total of 176, which is more than half, did not have any income other than the income given to them by the Danish state. So this claim that they are hugely valuable and benefiting society, absolutely not. Okay, so the second generation. So these are the children that are born of that first generation. So the 321 came over. This is their children. There are 1,000 children. Well, they're not. There's 999. Okay, so of the 999 children of the migrants from Palestine, 337 have been convicted of serious criminal offences. 132 have been sent to prison, and 372, which is lower by percentages, now only around a third, are on government support, having no income of their own. Now, people often ask me this question: do you believe that immigrants are just naturally more likely to be criminals? No, I don't. Do you think that Pakistanis are more likely to be criminals than people from the United Kingdom? No, I don't think that either. Do you think that Muslims are somehow a threat to our society? No, don't believe that. Here's what I believe. First and foremost, you care more about your family and your community than you do about somebody else's. We behave appallingly badly as British people when we go to Benidorm, vomiting in the streets and getting oral sex at 6 in the morning when kids are trying to walk to school. We don't behave in a good way over there because we don't see it as our own place. It's not that old phrase, pooing on your own doorstep. And you've got to remember that whilst you will run riot for 2 weeks and Spanish police have to try and control that, when you permanently move to a place that you don't care about, it's going to affect how you behave. You're not going to rob the local sweet shop if it's owned by your uncle, that being an obvious example. Similarly, you're not going to behave inappropriately with teenage girls in a particular area if they're your relatives and indeed the daughters of your friends. Now, I'm not saying that you, if you move to Pakistan tomorrow, would become a criminal. What I'm saying is part of the impediment to being a criminal is threat of the police and threat of the courts and threat of punishment. But part of it is the risk of societal damage to your reputation, letting your family down, and people forget that. And if you are a migrant to an area, you just don't have that element of being embarrassed on behalf of your family or the need to protect a particular community. So that is why migrant crime is high, and that's why people who don't integrate are a bigger problem as well. Now, let's get back to Denmark. Listen to this. You are going to love this idea. Denmark has now said that it is no longer willing to have ghettos. Remember that concept that we've talked about so many times on this channel? Not that people are moving, one Syrian to every street. What's actually happening is large numbers of people are creating effectively tribal areas where Sharia courts are the legal system, where policing operates differently, where they speak their own language, practice their own religion and maintain their own culture. Nelson in Lancashire is not a British town anymore. It's a Pakistani Muslim town. Now, you may think that's a good or a bad thing, but it certainly doesn't help with integration. So Denmark has said, once there are areas which are now called non-Western zones, those zones are subject to the following. Nobody who is not Danish by I suppose, genetics is allowed to move there. People who live there now have to start moving out if they are an ethnic or religious minority or can't speak Danish or whatever. There's various benchmarks. All of them have to move. And the reason that they say that very simply is, I'm sorry, we're not all the same. If you live in Denmark, you have to live in a majority Danish-speaking area. You have to live in a majority Christian area. You have to live in a majority area of Danish people. If you don't like that, then unfortunately Denmark is not the country for you and you will have to return to your country of origin. This is the first serious attempt, I would say, in integrating people. Whereas in Britain, we create these settler communities. In Denmark, they've tried to do something different. But the other thing that Denmark has done, which I want to applaud very, very heavily, is something that, once again, we've talked about on this channel because we talk about loads. The war is over, it's time to go home. I'm going to say to you a couple of things. I'm not against immigration. I don't think you are either. I'm against that idea of creating tribal areas. I'm against settler communities. One or two people coming over to do anything is just a normal thing and it doesn't bother me at all. But this idea that we're going to have hundreds and thousands of people, I think we need to start saying, look, if you are seeking temporary refuge in a country, that refuge must be temporary. Remember the problems, because of course we always get told this is all about us being Islamophobic. Think about the problem of when the Belgians moved to, I forget where it was, I think it might have been in Sussex during the First World War. Large numbers of Belgians were there and they were not very popular because they continued to speak French or Wallonian, is that the name of the language, perhaps? They continued to do that and they kept up with their Belgian ways. The reason nobody ever talks about this is because they went back in 1918. This idea that what you do is a war breaks out in your country, and we know many refugees don't come from war-torn countries, but let's be generous. Those people that do come from a war-torn country, they go, right, I'm going to go to the place that's got the best benefits and stay there forever. What Denmark is now saying is when the war is over, it's time to go home. I think that's reasonable. Now, remember one thing that people forget. If you have come to Britain as a refugee and you marry a British national, you can stay as a spouse, no problem. If you get a work visa, you can stay as a worker. And all of that leads to potentially getting a passport and all those sorts of things. We're not saying you have to leave the country. What we're saying is that when your war is over, your need for refuge no longer exists. So if that's the only reason you're in the UK, then you have to go home. So don't be don't be persuaded into believing that that's a particularly harsh thing to do. The other thing I'm going to say is if you were born outside the United Kingdom and you are convicted of any crime, it's really time to go home to your country of origin. And the reason for that is very simple. It's not about being overly draconian or overly unfair. It's precisely what I was talking about at the beginning. That is to say that you are not somebody, by the way, you might be like this and I might be like this, we don't know because we've never been immigrants. You might be the sort of person who can't cope with being outside your own community. You're not going to behave in a way that is responsible. Now, you will have a better chance of succeeding back in your country of origin for reasons that I explained at the beginning of the video. But it is not our problem. We don't feed you, house you, clothe you, and then you rob us. Simply, from my point of view, if you have committed a crime in the United Kingdom, then you have demonstrated that you're not somebody who's appropriate to be here. And I think that we send you home. And by the way, that's what Denmark's talking about doing. Now, where have we got to in this video? Well, I'm going to say to you that we need to start admitting to ourselves that England ought to be for the English, the United Kingdom ought to be for the British. And it is not right to be in a position where a majority of people in England are Urdu speaking. It's not going to be, and when I say Urdu speaking, I don't mean bilingual, I mean monolingual, Urdu only. We shouldn't be changing our signs. We shouldn't be welcoming of foreign culture. Welcoming foreign people is a very different thing. My grandmother moved here from Greece. My other grandmother's from Belfast, and both my grandfathers are English, or British rather. No, in fact, they are English. But my grandmother from Greece, you know, she came here in order to be British. My dad converted to Catholicism recently. When my mum was dying, he took communion for the first time on her deathbed. But before that, he was Greek Orthodox. But the only reason he was Greek Orthodox was because he was literally born in the British Army Hospital in Athens. He was brought up Church of England because that was the religion of the country. My grandmother refused to teach her children how to speak Greek, which might be seen as quite an old-fashioned way. And I'll tell you even further. I went to Greece with her after I did my GCSEs. She got to the immigration border at Athens airport, the customs checks, whatever you want to call it. They looked in her passport and it said Athens, Greece, and they said to her in Greek, oh, you're Greek. And she said, please answer me in English. And she said the reason was because she believed that immigrants should integrate into society. So what I want to say is we need to start thinking about that integration. And we need to start saying it's not all equal but different. There aren't these universal human rights. There's the right of somebody to be in their own country and to live in peace. And the benefit of coming to the United Kingdom comes with certain caveats. And those caveats are that you will be British. You will, I mean, I'm going to say practice the religion of Britain. I'm not so bothered. I don't think Islam at its heart is particularly alien, actually, given that the Bible is a religious text in the religion anyhow. But you have to start thinking about being British. You have to dress like a Brit. Always remember, a burqa is no more than, it is to Islam what a raincoat is to Christianity. There's nothing in the Quran that says you need to wear a burqa. If you're wearing a burqa, you're doing it because you're an Islamic nationalist trying to change Britain, and those people are the people that we don't want. We want the people who integrate. So, well done Denmark on publishing these statistics. I think non-Western zones are a great idea, and I think the war is over, time to go home is a brilliant idea. Please do donate to the Patriot Fund. Your funds do help. We are a tiny, tiny, tiny organisation. I was with the Free Speech Union yesterday, and they raise 5 million a year. We raise a couple of thousand a year, but nonetheless, we do make a big difference. I'm going to send you that Patriot Club update in the next day or two. Until next time, arrivederci and goodbye.